Experiment time. Today I'm going to be baking 3 sourdough breads with different amount of whole grain wheat flour. Yes, I did that before, but this time it's up to 100%. Yes, 100%. Hi, I'm Sune, and I'm a food geek. Yes, the hairdressers are back in business. I'm very happy. Thanks for asking. Many people asked for a follow-up to my previous whole grain wheat experiment. You can watch the original video by following the link in the card above. I will be baking 3 different breads with varying amounts of freshly milled whole grain wheat flour. 60%, which is the control, as that was the maximum amount in the previous experiment. 80%, which is just a whole lot of whole grain wheat flour. And then 100%, which is made with only whole grain wheat and no bread flour. We'll have a look at how it affects the dough, the handling, and the final bread. If you're new to this channel, I bake a lot of sourdough bread and I make delicious food from all over the world. My goal is to show you how to get the most out of every ingredient, and I want to teach you how to do that in simple and understandable steps. So join me by subscribing and ringing the bell so you won't miss any future videos. The bread flour that I'm using in the 60 and the 80% bread is a flour from a local mill in Denmark called Kornby. The whole grain wheat flour I've milled myself on my muck mill using wheat berries from a Danish company called Orion. If you're interested in buying a muck mill, I've left a link in the description. I really think that being able to mill at home takes sourdough baking to the next logical step. The hydration is the same in all 3 breads and the same as in the previous experiment. That's 80%. For this experiment, I converted my bread flour starter to a whole grain wheat starter. I converted it by feeding it 4 times at 155 using freshly milled whole grain wheat flour. That means there's less than 0.005% bread flour left in the starter at the time of baking, which is good enough for this experiment. A lot of people suggested that I vary the hydration for each bread, and I certainly see a good reasoning for doing that. But I do try to make it so that I only vary one variable when I do my experiments, and I will do that in this experiment as well. If I had some way of determining what the correct change in hydration would be, it would be a different story. But if you were to go by feel, it would be an unrepeatable experiment, making it less valid. But I may be wrong, but at least I thought about it, right? If you'd like to support the channel, please buy some merch or use the links in the descriptions for tools and ingredients. Those are affiliate links, so if you buy something, I will be getting a percentage of the sale. Those were the words. This is the experiment. First, I start out by mixing the salt, the flour, and the water. The 60% dough, the 80% dough, and the 100% dough. Then I let the doughs rest for an hour before mixing in the starter. Then I mix in the starter, first the 60%, then the 80%, and then the 100%. As you can tell that even at 80% hydration, the dough is a bit more on the stiff side. Nothing that can't be handled though. Then it's time for bulk fermentation. I plan to do 3 sets of stretch and folds unless more are needed. The first set of stretch and folds,
The second set of stretch and folds. And the third set of stretch and folds. The 60% dough breaks easily when I do the window pane, so it goes back for another set in 30 minutes. The 80% looks great and goes into the bulking container and into the proofer set to 30 degrees Celsius, about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. The 100% looks good too, and it too goes into the proofer. Then I do a fourth set of stretch and folds for the 60%. The window pane is looking great now, so it goes off to the proofer as well. Then I proof the doughs until they've risen about 25%. The 100% is done proofing first, so I pre-shape it. And then I final shape it. And then I put it into the fridge for a retard. Then both the 60 and 80% are done, so I pre-shape them together. And then I final shape them together. And they go into the fridge as well. After about an 8-hour retard, I proceed to bake. First the 100%. I sprinkle the bottom of the loaf with lots of rice flour to make sure that it can just slide off my peel. Then I flip it onto the peel using my non-patented fluid flip. Trademark pending. And then I add rice flour to the top. A lot of people ask me why I do that, and it's simply for the look. The rice flour stays white after it's baked, and it gives a good contrast to where the score opens up. Then I score the bread. And I put it into the oven. And that's how it looks when it comes out of the oven. Moderate oven spring, but it looks nice. Then the 80%. And here it comes. Better oven spring for sure. Then the 60%. Kablam! I think it's pretty obvious that you need at least some bread flour to get good oven spring. I let the bread cool down to room temperature before cutting into it. It's important to do that because the carryover heat will finish baking the bread. It isn't done when you take it out. So let's have a look at the crumb. First the 100%. A nice and well-fermented crumb. It reminds me of what we call a French peasant bread here in Denmark. Then the 80%. A bit more open, but still pretty tight crumb. Then the 60%. This is quite a bit more open. If you're really into open crumb, you need to go much lower in whole grain wheat content though. Let's have a whiff and taste of what these three breads have to offer. Pleasant bready and tangy smell. Same kind of smell, but a bit more intense. This smells great. More of everything. Well, let's have a taste. It's good. Wonderful sourdough. Well, it seems that the smell told us about what the flavor would give us too. Somewhat more intense. The last one clearly has the most bread flavor and also more tang.
Okay, so this is where it made a lot of difference. The crumb got tighter from 60 to 100%. It got less and less oven spring, starting from 60 to 100%. The crust is pretty similar though, and all of them were great bread. So if you want to bake with whole grain wheat flour, even with 100%, it's totally doable. Just remember that trying this with any other type of grain could be a whole nother story. Rye has a little bit of gluten, but not much. I do have a recipe for it with 100% rye bread, which is baked in a pan. If you want to try and make that, follow the card above. Using ancient wheat grains like spelt, einkorn, and emmer might also be a completely different story and warrants its own experiment. Let me know in the comments what grain you'd like to see me test next. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.